What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to basketball, and more importantly, welcome back to a free agency update. Now, this video is not going to look like some of the typical ones that we've done on this channel up to this point. What have we done? Like 2 of them, or maybe 3 of them, it looks like, on this channel before. In this one, it's just going to be a very general free agency update. As you guys know, I've built the ultimate spreadsheet. It's a tool that I just kind of put together based off of some of the other Excel documents that we've made, where we can kind of just take a look at each individual team, kind of what they're doing throughout free agency. And I just want to give an update on each team. Let's take a look at where they're at, what's their current situation, who's still available to them in order to kind of help round out the team, because there's still a long offseason ahead of us. I know we're thinking it's wrapping up, but it's really not. So that's the point of this episode. We're just going to do a quick little look into every single team at this point in free agency. But before we go and do that, make sure you guys like, subscribe, and comment. I've responded to every single comment to my YouTube channel up to this point, and I intend to keep on doing so. I encourage you guys, if you're curious, to go watch my film session video. I had enough people recommend that they wanted me to do some film breakdown of Summer League, and so I went and actually made a video on it. This one's actually doing pretty solid, and it hasn't been demonetized yet, which is interesting enough to me. The NBA doesn't care about Summer League, I guess, so I guess I'll do a couple more, but obviously I'll keep doing them if you guys keep watching them, so go show it some love. But with that being said, let's talk about the offseason. Alrighty, so we're back to the ultimate spreadsheet. I just like messing around with my new little soundboard that I have here, and some of the settings that I have in my editing software, so that's why I keep saying that. I don't know if it's actually an ultimate spreadsheet, but we're just going to be going through these teams alphabetically, kind of looking at what's happened so far this offseason, kind of talk about their situation, what we think of the moves, things like that. So we're starting off with the Atlanta Hawks. As far as roster additions this year, it's just been a couple of them. They added Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Luke Kennard. Nickeil via sign-and trade, Luke Kennard just via free agency, and they drafted Asa Newell here. All 3 of those moves I've found to be pretty good. Honestly, I haven't had any complaints with how this team's been moving. If you want to take a look at like other trades that they've made, obviously the Kristaps Porzingis one was a very big deal for this team. They really didn't move a ton in order to get him, and it's just a 1-year rental. So if you're the Hawks, you should be feeling pretty good about this roster. Now, they still do have 3 open roster spots. They're about $7 million from the luxury tax. Whether or not they'll be able to stay under the tax is a bit of a question, right? Just because you think about minimum contracts and how much they are, it'll be pretty hard to duck the tax. But this is also something where if you really needed to, you could always like try to move some people throughout the year. Maybe it's Kobe Buffkin because he's not quite on a like a minimum contract, and we'll see how productive he actually is. Maybe they move him at some point this season to try to duck the tax and just bring in some minimum guys. But overall, if you're a Hawks fan, I feel like you've been having a pretty good offseason. What other things could they add? There probably needs to be like another true point guard. Like, I think Vit is interesting. I think Dyson can do it a little bit, and funny enough, Luke Kennard is like kind of a solid ball handler. I wouldn't call him like good, but like capable, and like Kobe Buffkin maybe. And there's a couple other guys that you'd like to see have the ball this year a little bit more, like a Jalen Johnson, right? We want to see what happens if he has the basketball a little bit more. Maybe Reese Shea. I don't see that being a big part of his game long term, but I'm never going to cut him off from that. So probably adding another guard here. I don't think they need like another like big on the team, just because if you needed to, Jalen Johnson could play some center minutes for you. I think Mo Gay definitely could for you, and I think he honestly has. So probably just adding like another lengthier forward to the team. And just for clarification, these are wings right here. Like a 2 and a 3 is a wing. Normally when we're talking like basketball, like when we're actually within like an NBA team or something, we don't really call them 1 through 5 at this point. You've got your point guards, you've got combo guards, which is 1s and 2s. Wings are 2s and 3s. Forwards are 3s and 4s, and then bigs are 4s and 5s. You could just have a true center, true point guard as well, but that's kind of the positionless basketball terminology that we just use at this point, which isn't very complicated, but I figured I'd explain it to you anyway. As far as like other people they could target or whatever, I don't exactly know if there's an obvious fit here. Maybe they get in on some trades, and Amir Coffey could be a really good one for them, just as like another stretch wing on the team, a similar guy to Reese Shea. I could see it. Moving on to Brooklyn. Well, Brooklyn's been active, that's for sure. They had a really, really odd draft, that's for sure. If we can take a look at the people that they've added this year, they traded for Michael Porter Jr., right? Because they traded Cam Johnson. Michael Porter Jr., he can do a lot for you offensively, and defensively he's actually pretty good if he's healthy. This last year was not a good defensive year for him, but dude was kind of battling a lot from my understanding of things. They also brought in Terrence Mann here, who I don't know. I don't think he's really going to do that much for you. Like, he's probably a starter on this team, don't get me wrong, but this team's goal is to not be good at basketball this year. That's evident. They have a ton of cap space. We'll see if they get in on a Kuminga trade or something, but they are trying to not be very good next year because they have their own first round pick, and you got to start the rebuild somehow. As far as other guys that they signed, they brought back Zaire Williams, Deron Sharp, two interesting players. Sharp maybe a little bit more than Williams, but why not bring Williams back? Their draft was something. It was something. They had 5 first-round picks, right? And it was interesting, right? They took guys that are all kind of the same thing, more or less, right? They have the same skill set. I know they kind of play different positions. Well, Yegor, Nolan, and Seraph are all kind of like the exact same project, if you would. Drake Powell also like a non-scorer. Danny Wolf can contribute a little bit more offensively, but he's still ball dominant as well. So, I don't know. That was really strange. I'm not going to tell you that was good because I don't necessarily believe it is, but this team's got a lot of cap space. I don't care about that much just because free agency, not many people hit free agency at this point, right? And even if they did, why would somebody go sign with Brooklyn as opposed to other people? I don't exactly know. But they'll be able to help facilitate deals. They got a bunch of draft picks going forward. You couldn't even list them all on here. So there is hope. They do have to cut one roster spot, which they could cut anybody like Mr. Whitehead here all the way through Drew Timmy. Any of these guys could be cut at a moment's notice and nobody would probably blink at it whatsoever. Not all these are even guaranteed contracts. So I doubt that there's any more significant moves with this team. Maybe they're a part of another like big trade or something. Maybe they're helping to facilitate a Kuminga sign and trade or something like that. Maybe they're taking on Jonathan Kuminga. I don't know, because why not, right? They're one of the teams that could probably use him, but this is what the team's looking like right now. As much as I can't complain about what they're doing right now, I just wish the draft would have gone a little bit better for him. It's kind of a stacked draft, and you didn't walk away with someone that you go, all right, I'm super excited about that, right? I'm super excited. Man, do we feel bad for Coach Fernandez having to coach like 5 rookies this next year? That is a coaching job that I don't want. The Boston Celtics going through a weird offseason, right? It's sounding like they are going to try to move on from Anthony Simons. But let's just talk about like who they've added. Obviously, Jason Tatum is out this year. They brought in Anthony Simons in that Drew Holiday trade. Georges Niang is a part of the Kristaps Porzingis one. Then they went and signed the 2 Timberwolves, Josh Minott and Luka Garza, who will probably be reserves for this team, but solid reserves, at least interesting guys that have played in the NBA a little bit. They had 3 draft picks. Hugo Gonzalez, I'm sure, is probably the only one that actually makes the team on a full roster. The other 2, Amari Williams and Max Shulga, I'm guessing will be 2-way players, but we don't know at the time of recording this what's going on with them. They technically have to remove 2 roster spots, so that could be an easy way to do it, is just by not including those 2. The center position's looking a little bit iffy right now, and the salary cap situation is a bigger deal. Brad Stevens has been saying it himself. He's like, look, the reason we're making the moves is because of the cap. It's like, yes, we're all aware of that. Thank you for the transparency, though, Brad. It's always appreciated. They still need to duck the aprons because there's no reason for them to do so. They should probably try to duck the tax as much as possible. If they're going to try to move Anthony Simons, I mean, sure, I guess why not? If you can get some cheaper options, save a little bit of money. Sam Hauser's another name to watch as he makes a little bit of cash as well. I guess it could be Georges Niang. And yeah, you don't need Simons because you have Peyton Pritchard and he's good enough to be a starting point guard in the NBA. There's no doubt about that. But as far as other things, it'd be like, you still want this team to be competitive this year. You want them to be as competitive as possible. So trying to find a more permanent center here, finding some more guard depth after you trade Peyton Pritchard. The forward spots are looking pretty good, though, overall. And honestly, a draft pick situation not looking too bad for the Celtics either. So, yeah, I'm not going to talk about adding more people to this team right now just because the roster's pretty full. Let's move on to Charlotte, who has an extra full roster. I couldn't even fit all the people on the depth chart. They've got so many and they're still not in the luxury tax, which is pretty impressive. Let's talk about all the people they've brought in. They brought in Colin Sexton, which was a weird move in and of itself, but they just kind of took him from the Jazz because they could, and they were just like, you want Yusuf Nurkic instead? And the Jazz were like, yes. And they were like, okay, if you say so, can we have a draft pick? And the Jazz were like, sure. And they're like, okay. Like, we don't really need him, but yes, we would rather have Colin Sexton because he's just more valuable. So they got Colin Sexton out of it, which, fair enough. They ended up getting some more draft picks and Pat Connaughton from the Milwaukee Bucks. And it's kind of been their MO this summer, is just bring in, like, solid quality culture guys and take on other people's bad contracts, accumulate draft picks. Like, the Charlotte Hornets are doing all the right things and they're being very active. They re-signed a bunch of other guards in Trey Mann and Spencer Dinwiddie. They have so many guards on this team. They brought back Mason Plumlee because the center position is weird for them. Had 4 draft picks. Con Knippel, controversial 4th pick, but should be a strong culture guy and a solid player. Liam McNeely, Sion James, and Ryan Kalkbrenner here. All 4 apparently are going to be on the full-time roster. Again, this team is not necessarily a good basketball team on paper, but this team has been so bad for so long, and this organization has been so bad. It's cool just to see them moving, if nothing else. Again, they've got plenty of cap space. They're accumulating draft picks like it is their job, and it should be their job right now. They do have to clear some roster spots in order to make things work. And just looking at the team, like, you can't really move any of the center pieces. I mean, Musa is kind of a center. Mason Plumlee's there. It sounds like Kalkbrenner will be a center option, so he'll get some minutes this year. But does that mean Nick Smith isn't on the team? Daquan Jeffries almost certainly going to be cut. Josh Okogie, he's not even on a guaranteed deal, I don't think. Maybe Pat Connaughton gets bought out because he's just not needed on the team. I don't know. But you've got to clear up 4 roster spots on this team right now. So kind of an interesting situation, and a lot of this team's success is going to ride on the health of LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller as per usual. But cool to see the Hornets trying to make like some good culture moves and try to make some smart decisions for a low market team that hasn't always been the best. So good for them. My Chicago Bulls. For those new to the channel, I am a Bulls fan, unfortunately, and I don't say this stuff just to be like, oh, woe is me, like some fan bases on like NBA Twitter. I'm looking at you, Miami Heat fans and Lakers fans, and I don't know, there's probably some other people we could, Golden State Warriors fans right now. They're like, our organizations are so bad. AVC, why don't my teams trade for all the best players? Why don't they accept Walker Kessler for my bag of potato chips? Well, you know what, dum-dums, that's not exactly how it works. The Bulls and the Kings have to be in the worst 2 spots right now. They just have to be. Those teams have no idea what they're doing. None of their moves make any sense, really, and it's just sad. It's just sad. So, my Chicago Bulls, what have they done this offseason? Well, just look into this. Do I not have Nikola Vucevic on here? I actually don't even have Vucevic on the list, so that is my apologies right there. I'm just gonna move everybody down a little bit here, and we are gonna throw Mr. Vucevic on the list. There we go. Now the numbers are a little bit more accurate. I make mistakes. It's okay. If you notice a mistake, let me know, because I've definitely probably made one somewhere on this sheet. You're looking at this team. Who did they bring in this offseason? They made the Lonzo Ball for Isaac Okoro trade, which was like cool, I guess. Like, yeah, I guess Isaac Okoro has a better chance to show his stuff here, but like, it's just kind of like whatever. They could have gotten a 1st-round pick for Lonzo Ball last year, but they were like, whatever. I can't be asked to care that much. They brought back Trey Jones, which cool. Trey Jones is a nice basketball player. I like him. They drafted Noah Essengay, which, meh. that's my opinion on it as well. They're going to have 2 really athletic forwards. Really athletic. I think Buzelis is much more athletic than Essengay, personally. That can't really shoot the basketball and can't really dribble. So not sure where this team's going directionally at all. Draft pick situation, not bad. Definitely not good. They just are allergic to trading for draft picks for whatever reason. The one remaining roster spot almost certainly going to Josh Giddey, and he's a restricted free agent. I'm going to guess he's going to come in at around like 25-ish million a year, which I think is a great deal for Josh Giddey. I think he's a good basketball player. This team just has no idea where it's going right now, and it feels like they're just going to be a 10 seed again, so they're just waiting for Josh Giddey at this point. Moving on to the Cleveland Cavaliers, a true contender for this year, we would assume, and so that's why we look at the salary cap situation here and see how far over they are the second apron. makes a lot of sense that they're going to be a competing team this year, because you wouldn't be paying all that if you didn't think you were going to be very good. And actually, solid draft pick selection still for how much talent they've accumulated on the roster. Just look at all this green on here. If you're new to the channel, these are EPM numbers. EPM stands for estimated plus minus. That basically just means that we have this really, really advanced statistic that spits out a number that tells you how good somebody is individually as an offensive, defensive, and just overall as an NBA player. I take those numbers and index them so I can get a 0 to 100 score. I tell everybody with every statistic, there's always things that can't be captured in them, so they're never going to be perfect, but this is one of the better stats we have, and that's why we include it on here. Looking at this team and people that they've added, Lonzo Ball being kind of the main one that they added via trade, because Ty Jerome was just someone that they couldn't maintain due to salary reasons. And so Ty Jerome left via sign-in trade, I believe. And then they traded Isaac Okoro, a guy that they really just didn't need anymore, for a very productive backup point guard when healthy in Lonzo Ball. It should be exciting. Hopefully he's going to be healthy. They re-signed Sam Merrill to what I thought was maybe a bit of an overpay for Sam Merrill, but I can't complain too much. You want to keep your guys. Duke can shoot the shit out of the basketball and tries really hard on defense. Brought Larry Nance back. They needed some more big man depth, so that's cool. They drafted Tyrese Proctor, who has been signed to a standard contract, and I think that makes some sense, giving you some combo guard depth. We'll see if this Niang makes the team. I'd be so shocked if he did. So this team still could have 2 open roster spots that they could use on minimum contract guys. Probably want to add another forward to the roster somewhere. So again, that's kind of that 3-4 spot. 1 extra center for sure would help. Like, yes, Evan Mobley can play there, Jared Allen and Larry Nance. So you technically have 3 already, but why not just have kind of the insurance of all of that? So, I mean, if we go take a look at some bigs like Marvin Bagley, Chris Boucher. Chris Boucher might be trying to get a little bit more of like a mid-level type deal rather than not. Maybe a Precious Achiuwa if he wants to come on a minimum and compete for a rotation spot. Because New York's not as likely to give him the playing time. A DeAndre Jordan just could be a nice reserve for them if he doesn't want to go back to the Denver Nuggets. I don't know if it's Bull. I actually like Tristan Vukicic a decent amount. But yeah, just kind of names like that. Maybe Jeremiah Robinson Earl does something, even though I'm not the biggest fan of him. Bismack Biyombo, whenever you put him on the court, will get 10 rebounds in 10 minutes. So not a bad option as well. But that's kind of what this team's looking like. It's going to be expensive. They're going to be good. It's a stacked roster, so I expect good things out of them. The Dallas Mavericks, somehow, some way, right after surviving what was probably the worst trade I've ever seen in NBA history, they're back. They're back, man, and they've figured it out. Like, Nico Harrison was making elite moves until that one, and he's kind of back to making really good moves again. This team obviously won the lottery and got Cooper Flagg. Very, very cool. I'm not sure if this number is like completely accurate up to this point, if they're just close enough to the second apron. This team's probably going to be second apron before it's done, but maybe after cutting some people, maybe they won't. In terms of like actual roster players, pretty much the exact same. There's an ambulance going by, so I'm going to pause. Anyway, but the biggest thing for this team was, Kyrie Irving's going to be out for a large chunk of this season. He took a little bit of a pay cut, negotiated his contract out a couple more years, which is beneficial to him. They needed that point guard to kind of hold them over until he gets back. They went out and got D'Angelo Russell for $5 million. Great. You got him. You got Jaden Hardy. Exum has played point guard in the past. I wouldn't recommend it, but he has. And Brandon Williams, who I actually think is a pretty solid player and I think should be in competition to get some minutes over Hardy, are there. So you're good. This should be a pretty good basketball team. Cooper Flagg doesn't have to score 20 points on this team. I mean, Anthony Davis is awesome. You got some great centers on the team. You got great wings, forwards, guards. Cooper Flagg is set up to learn from some of the best. Should be pretty good. We just hope some of the internal turmoil on this team isn't going to warp it in any way for Cooper Flagg. But hey, they're not doing too bad all said and done. They've got a couple draft picks still at their disposal, so good for them. They do have to remove one roster spot. Maybe they're moving on from an Oliver Maxson's Prosper. Just looking at other people it could be. I'm sure they'd love to trade Dwight Powell just because he can't do much on the basketball court at this point. He's making like $4 million, so I don't know. Maybe they do some sort of like stretch provision on him where it's like $1 million over the next like 3 years. That's much more doable. So something to think about there. The Denver Nuggets, wow, what an offseason they have had. Brought in that new front office, and they are making things happen. They were like, hey, you guys wanted us to make moves, right? You guys were sick of us not making like any moves to have depth on this team, and all the Nuggets fans were like, yes, it's really pissing us off because we have the like debatably the best player in the world, and we still almost beat the Thunder with like no basketball team around him whatsoever. And they were like, okay, we will get you all the role players. So they went out this offseason and they made some moves. They went and got Cam Johnson from Michael Porter Jr., who Cam Johnson, really, really good basketball player, right? Especially on the offensive end, can do a lot for you. Should be a nice stretch forward option that can put the ball on the floor a lot more than like a Michael Porter Jr. can. Maybe a bit more defensive versatility at times. I've seen Michael Porter have some pretty good defensive years, but Cam Johnson, still a good player overall, so it's a nice addition to the team. They went and added some actual depth to the roster, especially in the center position of Jonas Valanciunas, we're going to see if he's actually sticking around this year. The Nuggets are basically telling him he has to play for the Nuggets this year. They're not going to let him go to Greece because he has that Greek contract waiting for him over there, which I don't take Valanciunas as the kind of guy to be like, oh, okay, I'm gonna whine and pout or whatever, but maybe you never know, right? And I've had some people asking like, why would he even consider this? Like, why this? And I think you have to remember that, like, a lot of us are Americans right here on this channel, and I know that not all of you are on here. Americans do this thing where we like to really only look at ourselves like we're the center of the world, and we're just not. If you've ever been someone living in another country, it can be exhausting at times. People don't speak your language. You're always kind of having to check yourself. They never quite understand you. Whereas if Jonas went and played somewhere else, he can be in, and I know that he's not from Greece, right? But he can be closer to home, around more people like him. He can be the star for once. There's a lot to be enticed by with that stuff. Other guys that they brought in, Bruce Brown, the star lad of their last championship run. Tim Hardaway Jr. is going to be a really nice backup guard for them. They do still have one open roster spot, and they've got some space still before they hit the first apron, and so they've still got some of that mid-level that they could use. One thing that you definitely have to address is having another point guard on this roster. If you bring Russell Westbrook back, I think that'd be cool. Chris Paul would be another awesome option for this team. It'd be cool to see him try to compete for a championship. Otherwise, like maybe a little bit more forward insurance as well. Maybe you can cut Hunter Tyson somehow and stretch him or something like that, right? Because Deron Holmes will be back this next year, and I think he'll be interesting, but he's unproven. So there's still some work to do, but overall, pretty good offseason for Denver. Moving on to the Detroit Pistons here. Their roster is looking pretty solid for a young basketball team, right? The big thing for them was Malik Beasley, who might be going to jail. We hope that that's not the case, but if it's what happens, then it's what happens. I just realized I don't know what happened here, but this got copy and pasted weird. So there we go. Kind of running it back for the most part, except they did add a couple more shooters to a team that just didn't have enough shooting, and Malik Beasley's gone, so they went and added Karis LeVert, who I just feel a lot better about as a player after watching him this last season. Added Duncan Robinson, one of the best shooters that we have in basketball. Drafted Chaz Lanier here, who apparently is going to be on the full-time roster, because why not? They've got a bunch of cap space still to work with and 2 open roster spots, so what are we looking for? I don't know if you need another point guard necessarily, because Karras will have the ball a lot. Ivy's probably more of a point guard. Cade Cunningham's obviously there. You have Sasser, who I actually like a pretty good amount. I think the center spot's fine, so maybe just finding a couple other forwards to throw on the roster, preferably some people that can shoot. I think you are missing some vets on this team outside of just Tobias, so I'd like to see them go and add somebody like that at those positions. So who would that be? Like, who would those good vets be? I mean, Al Horford would be cool if you could bring him in, but like a Trey Lyles, I think would be a really nice addition to this team. He's just very, very consistent. If you really just want the vet, you can bring in James Johnson or Taj Gibson, but I'm not sure that they're going to go for that necessarily. So outside of the Trey Lyles, I'm not quite sure who else you'd want to bring in. I actually wouldn't mind a Javonte Green on this team, but he's a little bit redundant to Asar Thompson. I don't know, but just kind of looking for those kind of veteran forwards, I think would be solid options. And this team is poised to keep growing around Cade, so that's exciting. Keep doing the right thing, Detroit. Just keep putting players around that make Cade's life easier, and things will be okay. The Golden State Warriors. I know Warriors fans. Oh, what team hasn't signed anybody? ABC, they haven't signed anybody. Shut the fuck up. That's what I have to say to you. You guys have to trade Kuminga first, and then you can go do all the other fun things. There's plenty of free agents still available. Go watch my YouTube video yesterday. We did a whole thing on it. There's plenty of people left. You have 4 open roster spots, and that's if you put Alex Tui and Will Richard on the team. I could see Tui making the roster. I doubt Will Richard will, but maybe they just want it for cap space reasons. But regardless, you got to put 4 guys on the team. You're probably going to trade Kuminga and get something back for him, so that's valuable. Overall, you need some other forwards on this team. You definitely need 1 or 2 more point guards because you cannot go into the playoffs with 1 point guard again. Oh my God, was that brutal when Steph Curry went down. Oh my God. So yeah, definitely need to get some guards. We talked about the Ben Simmons fit yesterday. I thought that would be really cool. Like a Brogdon would be sick on this team. Marvin Bagley could be another center. You probably want 1 extra center out there. Al Horford, I'd have to imagine, is going to Golden State right now, so I would expect to see him. I wouldn't mind a Trey Lyles on here. Again, we'll see what they get for Kuminga. Amir Coffey would be really cool with this group. If you want to throw Russell Westbrook on, you can. I'm not sure he's going to run their system because that's the thing with Golden State is you have to play their style of basketball, and so you have to be kind of careful with that stuff. But that's why I think the Ben Simmons fit would be pretty cool. And a Brogdon, they're a little bit more cerebral of basketball players. So just some things there. Solid draft pick position overall. They've got solid cap space to work with, all said and done. And when you have Steph Curry, you have Jimmy Butler, a lot of good things can happen. Draymond Green's still going to do Draymond Green things. I'm excited to see the second season of Quentin Post. So yeah, I guess we'll see. The Houston Rockets obviously had a busy offseason so far. They're the ones that added Kevin Durant, and they traded Jalen Green, who just wasn't really helping the team considerably at certain points in the year, is now gone. They lost Dylan Brooks, but they have so many other forwards on this team, it's not a big deal. They actually went and added Dorian Finney-Smith, which was like just kind of a step-down replacement of him. They're getting close to that first apron now, and they still do have 2 open roster spots as of counting this right now. Looking at the people that they brought back, I mean, Fred VanVleet got a new deal for cheaper. They brought back Steven Adams for a while. Dorian Finney-Smith's an awesome addition. The Clint Capella one was a little bit weird. They have like 3 pretty good centers on their team, and yes, the Rockets had that whole stint of playing a couple bigs together in the playoffs. I don't know if that's exactly what I would do long term. It was fun to see them just rebound the basketball so much, but I don't know if that's going to amount to winning basketball, but they've got them here, and I guess they can use Clint or somebody as a trade chip if needed. Jayshawn Tate, Aaron Holiday, Jeff Green are other people that they have brought in. So what does this team need? Probably 1 more ball handler is what I'd say, and another shooter. You just need more shooting on this team overall just because shooting was such a problem. Maybe 1 more creator would be kind of cool. You're hoping that Amen is going to be a little bit better at that coming into his 3rd year. Obviously, KD and Fred can do it to an extent. Maybe Jabari Smith takes another step forward. I wouldn't be surprised if Tari Eason takes a little bit of a step forward in that. I've been watching some of his like off-season stuff that my buddies have been sending me, and I'm excited about Tari Eason. So we'll see. We'll certainly see. But this team should be in a pretty competitive spot this next year with what I think could be 3 all-star players in Amen Thompson, Şengün, and Kevin Durant. So we'll see with this group. But yeah, let's go find them like another like forward or something. Again, basically just throw Amir Coffey in and then some other guard, and I think that you'd be in a good spot. The Pacers. This has not been a good offseason for the Indiana Pacers. I'm going to keep it a buck with you. After going to Game 7 with one of the best teams of all time, the Pacers messed some things up. They really did. Their organization fucked some things up, and they should feel bad about it. The whole Miles Turner thing was really stupid. They just didn't offer him a competitive deal, and then they're like, we were shocked that he went to another team or whatever. It's like, well, you know what? Like he's been with you for this long. You're dragging him through things, not sure how much money you're gonna pay him, yada yada, and then you just give him such a whack offer of like $20 million a year, which I know that's a lot of money, but for how good Miles Turner is, come on, man. Like, the Bucks didn't even give him a lucrative offer. They just gave him a fair offer, and he was like, well, you know what? It's nice to be wanted. I would like to go somewhere else. And by that, I mean, like, your biggest rival in the Milwaukee Bucks. So you lost Miles Turner, and now when Tyrese Halliburton comes back, you have to wonder, like, okay, like, is this team even, like, a contender anymore, right? Because Miles Turner was such a big part of things. Their center rotation's now looking like Jay Huff, who's a fun basketball player and can kind of do some Miles Turner-like things, but we'll see in what capacity. If Tony Bradley, He's Tony Bradley. James Wiseman, who I can't wait to see play in a Pacers offense, is just coming off an Achilles injury, so we just don't know. But we're going to need a lot out of Pascal, Obi Toppin, Jarris Walker. I'm looking at other things that they did this offseason. It was just Wiseman. They drafted Cam Jones. Looks like he's going to be on the full-time roster as kind of that combo guard spot. I'm not too worried about the point guard thing with Nembhard and TJ McConnell. I think they're going to be more than fine in those positions. This team's still going to be able to play their style of basketball, which is what they do best. That's how they win basketball games. But not having Miles Turner and Tyrese Halliburton, ooh-wee, that is a big step back. I don't know why you didn't just pay Miles Turner, man. Like, yes, Tyrese is out for this season, but like, come on, man, you were so close. Like, try to keep the team together, but whatever. What are you going to do? So, Pacers, not good offseason for them. The Clippers, pretty good offseason in my mind. Made an interesting trade. This team says that they're not quite in the luxury tax yet. That could be slightly off, so take it as kind of a borderline situation there. This team has basically set themselves up to be like, okay, as soon as Bradley Beal becomes a free agent, we're going to scoop his ass up, which, hey, cool for them, right? They traded Norman Powell in favor of John Collins, who's probably more of a positional need for them at that point in time. And so they went and added him. John Collins is a very, very nice basketball player, and I think he's going to be a welcome addition to this team. This is definitely one of the best starting fives that we can see in basketball. And if you throw Bradley Beal in there, oh boy, does it get even better. They went and added Brook Lopez in free agency. So now they've got two very solid starter quality centers on their roster, one that can space the floor and one that's a little bit more post-centric. Went and drafted Yannick Conan Niederhauser, who is actually a pretty interesting prospect that if you can kind of get him motivated, I think he'll be pretty solid. We'll see if Kobe Sanders makes the roster. I'm not positive he will, but we will see. And the Clippers, who were once in a very deadly pick situation, is slowly recovering. So Clippers fans, I feel like you guys should be happy. Like, I know that things haven't exactly gone well in terms of results over the past couple of years, but I feel like you're actually being managed pretty well right now. I feel like you got good coaching. I feel like you got a good front office. I feel like you got a good owner now, and like everything's just kind of like good. It's just you kind of have to finish out this Kawhi Leonard, James Harden thing and just see where it can go, because why not? Like, you guys were so good after the All-Star break this last year, so got to give it a chance. But they still do have 2 open roster spots. Probably want to add another guard to the team. That very well could just be Bradley Beal. Maybe add one more lengthier forward to the team. So we'll assume that Bradley Beal's one of them. I don't know if Chris Boucher's necessarily the option. You could add Chris Paul to this team too, and I wouldn't necessarily trip about it whatsoever. Just looking at like other people you could get, maybe an Alec Burks or something. You probably don't need him just because you have a couple other guys that like don't mind having the basketball and can go get themselves a bucket, especially if you add Bradley Beal. Horton Tucker could be kind of an interesting one as a pseudo ball handler as needed. Otherwise, like I think Alani Walker could be kind of cool as well. Maybe Landry Shamet. So there's some options out there. Brandon Boston Jr., maybe more of a wing. So there's some options out there. There's some options. The Lakers, your roster's kind of set as of right now, and it's you guys have had a pretty good offseason as well, in my mind. It might not be done, though. So what has this team done? They went and brought in DeAndre Ayton after he was bought out. This is a perfect addition to this team. If he gets motivated and he's around the right people to be motivated right now, this could be an awesome, awesome player for them. They brought in Jake LaRavia, which is interesting, to say the least. Jake LaRavia is a very quality basketball player. I don't know if like what he does was necessarily a need, but it's depth in a team that didn't have a ton of depth. They brought Jackson Hayes back, who I think will be a nice backup center for them, so good for them. They drafted Adu Thiero, who's a fun athlete, and he'll be on the roster this season. Draft picks are starting to dwindle a little bit, but you're trying to be competitive, and that's just what it is. We're going to see if Luka Doncic is in shape this year. Between him and Reeves, how's the team going to be defensively? Well, the team had a lot of great moments defensively last year, so we know it can be good. Come playoff time is another question. Obviously, we'd love to move on from the Gabe Vincent, who actually played solid last year, like a Jared Vanderbilt, Maxi Kleber. You just have a couple bad contracts on here that you'd probably like to move off of, if at all possible. So I'm sure that they're trying to talk to as many people as possible to try to throw those elsewhere, if you would. So that's what you look at with the Lakers, and if they could add a little bit more depth somewhere, again, another ball handler, maybe a more defensive-oriented one. Jordan Goodwin's not a bad option for that, but wouldn't mind something better. Obviously, more shooters because Dalton Connect's pretty young. You lost Dorian Finney-Smith. That was a tough was a tough loss overall. So yeah, just whatever depth you can add to this team that's a little bit more useful, that would be lovely. Moving on to the Grizzlies, who again, the Memphis Grizzlies are so interesting, right? They're so interesting. Like, they keep making moves, but not actually filling the holes that we know this team has. Like, this team has an interesting roster. They've got a lot of good players on them, but we keep saying they don't have that true center that they can go to, and they've had no, like, sizable forwards on the team that can really play like a little bit of wing or whatever. So Jalen Wells, as like a rookie, was kind of filling that role for them, but he was a rookie. And Zach Edey, I presume, is going to be the starting center as long as he doesn't play with race cars anymore. But Zach Edey has a lot of weaknesses still, so I don't know. This has been a weird offseason for them. They obviously traded Desmond Bane. They got some draft picks for him. They got very serviceable players in KCP, Cole Anthony, who might still be moved. I would presume he's going to get moved. Like, you still have Jaren Jackson Jr. You re-signed Santi Aldama to what I think was an awesome contract. You brought in Ty Jerome out of nowhere, so you've got like 3 really good like point guard options on the team. And Cole Anthony's another one. Like I said, he's just not needed, but he's a solid basketball player. You did go find another center in Jacques Lindell. Cool. You liked Cam Spencer. You brought him back. You drafted Cedric Coward, which I thought the trade to go get him made a ton of sense. We'll see how good he actually is this year. There's a lot of mystery around him. It says that they need to cut 3 players. I can't imagine either of the second-round picks make the team, and then I have to imagine Cole Anthony goes elsewhere, but are you going to take something back? You almost have to. So maybe like a John Conchar is included in that, maybe a Vince Williams Jr., because maybe he just gets lost in the rotation a little bit. I'd love to find a way to get Gigi Jackson on the court more, but it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard, but this team is good. Like, it's good. It's got so many good players. It's just, what are they building towards? I'm not exactly positive. So we will see. We will see. But yeah, they have to trim a little bit of the fat on the roster right now. The Miami Heat. Overall, I feel like the Heat haven't had a bad offseason either. The Norman Powell trade was interesting because they gave up basically nothing and got a guy that was a borderline all-star this last year in Norman Powell. They needed another shot creator. They got another shot creator. Cool. They lucked out in the draft and got a Kasparas Yakachonis, who was, and if you talk to most scouts, would have told you kind of like a top 10 prospect in this draft. They think he's going to be a nice point guard in the NBA. EVC, I watched him in Summer League go like 5 for 20. Wow, did ya? Did ya? Oh boy, do you need help tying your shoes too, bucko? I don't know what else to tell y'all, man. It's Summer League. Just shut the fuck up about Summer League. If I have to hear any more people being like, what AVC, are you worried about Summer League? No, I'm not. It has no correlation to how they play in the NBA. It's just pickup basketball, basically, except you're all wearing the same jerseys. That's really all it is. Everyone just kind of playing for themselves. So not worried about that whatsoever. I think as soon as you get Yakachonis and like an actual NBA team and system, I think he's going to look a lot better. But looking at this team and the moves that they've made, they brought in Fontecchio as well, so they lost Duncan Robinson. You're going to miss him, but it freed up some salary cap space in doing so. It was nice that you added another shot creator. The point guard position feels a little bit better now between Mitchell and Yakachonis. Terry Rozier's still on the team, and you definitely like to move him if you could. Other guys that you'd maybe look at moving is maybe a Jaime Jaquez Jr. while he has some value. Because again, I find it hard to see like where he's going to be able to get rotational minutes. I've seen some Andrew Wiggins trade rumors, but I'm like, I don't know. I think Wiggins' contract is pretty good, and I think he's a solid enough contributor, so I don't necessarily feel the need to move him. You do have one roster spot open regardless. Probably got to add another big to this team just because between after Ware and Bam, it gets a little bit iffy. You just did move Kevin Love. Again, I'd love to see like a Marvin Bagley or something take up that spot. Maybe it's a Chris Boucher because he can play a little bit of both positions as well in kind of either of the forward spot, and you're just thin at those positions, or excuse me, at the bigs spot, so you're just a little bit thin there, and that's kind of what I would like to see. I'm trying not to make this video too long, but maybe you guys kind of like the podcast style of things more. Milwaukee Bucks. Wow, what an offseason it has been. Obviously, when they got into this offseason, you had the Damian Lillard question, right? Are you going to be able to move him because this team is trying to be competitive because they want to keep Giannis around, but Dame just isn't going to be able to play this year, and that sucks. they made the risky move of waiving and stretching Damian Lillard so that you have to pay $22 million each of the next 5 seasons. There's nothing you can do about that either. That's there for forever. Now, that is Damian Lillard for the next 5 years. So you just kind of lost out on one starter spot each year in terms of cap space for this team, which was risky because Miles Turner called and said he was available and he'd like to sign, and you didn't want to miss up on it because Miles Turner isn't always available. Miles Turner is not what I'd call like a significant upgrade from Brook Lopez. I think he's a step up. But not much more than that. Like, they are very similar players, which is nice because Brook Lopez did work with Giannis. So you got a spacing center that hasn't been as great defensively in a couple years, but still pretty solid. And he's been a part of good defensive teams, so that's good. You look at other things that this team went and did, right? Obviously, moving off of Pat Connaughton, using some draft picks to do that. They brought back Bobby Portis. Kevin Porter Jr. is currently the lead guard on this team, who's extremely talented and could get you 20 points at any given night, but there's a lot of questions around him. We're able to bring Ryan Rollins back, a fun young player you found. You brought a bunch of other shooters back, and Gary Trent, Gary Harris, Torian Prince. Gary Harris was on the Magic last year, but you know what I'm saying. Jericho Sims, a fun guy that you kind of got at the deadline last year. He's a different type of center. He's more of the run, jump, and dunk type. You have one open roster spot, and that's presuming they sign their second round pick Bogo, which I'm not positive they will. He might just get a two-way. So you still do have a couple open roster spots. The starting point guard spot is still up for grabs, so maybe it's a Westbrook, maybe it's a Chris Paul. I don't know. Probably could use like another wing on the team, maybe a forward, because as much as we'd like to trade Kyle Kuzma, I just don't think that's going to be able to happen. I think you're going to be stuck with him, and as hard as it would be to move him, it's probably just better off trying to actualize the talent that's there, because man, there is talent there. It's just so hard to get it out of him for whatever reason. So you got a couple of those guys in that team between Kevin Porter and Kyle Kuzma, so I guess we'll see. Look out for Tyler Smith this year. I think Tyler Smith is a really interesting prospect. But as for who else this team could go get, like I said, we talked about a couple of the guard options. I wouldn't mind having a more dynamic wing on this team. Like, I like Andre Jackson Jr. A lot personally. I don't know why Doc Rivers hates him so much. I could actually see Gary Payton being an okay option for this team, just kind of being another effort guy like that. I know he's not a shooter, but I do feel like you have an okay amount of shooting on the team now at this point. So yeah, let's move on to Minnesota. I've seen a couple of Timberwolves fans being like, "Oh, AVC, we haven't really done anything all that exciting. You got your guys back. You made 2 straight conference finals. You just want your guys back." Do I necessarily agree that the Julius Randle like extension and everything is the right way to go? Meh, yes and no, but I mean, Randall showed he can do a lot of good things, man. He's a good player. I can't tell you it's a bad idea by any means. I personally sat on the side of, hey, let's just kind of let this Julius Randle, Rudy Gobert contracts run out, and let's kind of do a retool around a still young Anthony Edwards coming into his prime. That's kind of how I saw it, but hey, this team wants to kind of stick with it, and sometimes just holding on to these guys and their cap amounts that you can make trades is an okay thing to do. They lost out on Nickeil Alexander-Walker. There was no way they were going to be able to financially bring him back after re-signing both Naz Reid and Julius Randle. They just couldn't really afford to do so. They brought back their back of the bench vet, which is important for contending teams, and really every team should have one. It's a good culture thing to have someone that bridges the coaching staff and the players together in Joe Ingles. They drafted Jean Beringer, a center that I doubt you'll see many minutes of this year, but long term maybe is a starting center option. Maybe. It's a little bit hard for me to see that, but maybe. Then he took another project center in Rocco Zikarsky, which again, kind of the same situation, so I guess we'll see with that. We expect to see Terrence Shannon Jr. get some more minutes this next year for this team, someone that you guys know I was really high on coming into things, and we really got to see what he's able to do. I'd love to just see this team increase pace. This team is so brutal at moving in transition, and it shouldn't be with a guy like Anthony Edwards on the team, Jaden McDaniels, Julius Randle, Terrence Shannon Jr., hell, like DiVincenzo as well, Rob Dillingham if he gets some minutes this year. That'd be great. This team needs more ball handlers because Mike Conley became unplayable at points in the playoffs. He's just getting old, unfortunately. I doubt Rob Dillingham's ready to take over starting point guard minutes. I just highly doubt that. So we need some more guard play on this team. Again, I look at like a Kobe White trade if you could negotiate something like that. I think it would make a ton of sense. Otherwise, you're looking at the Chris Pauls, who probably could start on this team. You're looking at Russell Westbrooks, who it would just be cool to see him and Ant on the same team. If those two threw a lob to each other and like just seeing them kind of yell and pound their chest, that would be sick as shit. Just from like a fan perspective. But again, the Malcolm Brogdons of the world, I think would make some sense for this group. But yeah, let's see if they'll make the conference finals again. Moving on to the Pelicans, who, I'm not gonna lie, I think they've had a weird offseason. They traded a really valuable first-round pick to move up in the draft. Yeah, a pick that was probably going to be a lottery pick, and a team that's borderline about to blow things up traded that kind of pick for Derek Queen, a guy that I'm not exactly sure fits on this roster, and I just have a lot of questions about him in general, but they did it. They also took Jeremiah Fears, who I don't understand how he fits on this team and how he's going to get to grow adequately, because he needs the basketball and he likes to get downhill. That's his whole thing. But you went and traded for guys like Jordan Poole, who objectively in the trade itself, I didn't mind at all. I thought it was a nice addition. They needed like a pseudo point guard for this year, and Jordan Poole can certainly do that. Still a little bit confused, though, by all of it. As far as like other things they did, they signed Kevon Looney, and they needed more center depth, just because there's a lot of questions between Yves Missy, Derek Queen, and Matkovic. Feels like a bit of an overpay for Kevon Looney, but you wanted the defensive and veteran presence. Cool, I guess. Like, they haven't even hit the luxury tax yet, so it's fine. They still do have an open roster spot, and DeJounte Murray's going to be out for a little bit this year. I guess just adding another forward on the team is what I would recommend. Outside of like Herb and Trey, and then we're gonna hope Sadiq Bey is healthy. That's kind of what we're looking at there. And Amir Coffey probably would be helpful, just having another shooter on the team. They did also draft Micah Pevy, who is going to make the full-time roster, it seems like, but I wouldn't trust him out on the basketball court quite yet. So yeah, I kind of just don't know what this team is doing. They've made a bunch of questionable moves, a lot of question marks. I'm not sure they're going to be able to contend in the West right now, so we will see. The New York Knicks. I'm really trying to move through this to not make this like a super long video. New York Knicks really haven't done like anything too crazy with their roster this offseason. They just brought in a couple of free agents so far, in Gershon Yabusele and Jordan Clarkson, two guys that I think will be really valuable to this team. Clarkson hasn't been all that productive the past couple years in Utah, which, you know, whatever, they haven't been that competitive. But I feel like in New York, he could be one of those guys that shines. And Gershon, I think, is one of the best free agent signings this offseason. They still have a couple open roster spots, because I can't imagine Diawara makes the team. Probably wouldn't be a bad idea to get one more big on this team. I think you're doing okay at the point guard spot. I actually think Tyler Kolek is an awesome option. I'd try to bring in one or two more forwards to this group. So again, take a look at your Amir Coffeys. Trey Lyles could be an interesting one. Maybe Chris Boucher, if you're really all that interested in that. I could maybe even see like an Alec Burks or a Doug McDermott if you want to talk me into just getting shooters for things. If you want to just go with like the vet style of things, I guess you can go Jay Crowder, but I'm not doing Jay Crowder most likely. Lonnie Walker, I think, would be a cool one as well. So I'd look for things like that. I think the Knicks have had a nice offseason. OKC, they just re-signed everybody. Pretty much, yep. They just kind of re-signed everybody. They drafted Thomas Sorber, and yeah, that's pretty much it, y'all. It's pretty much it. They made that trade to send like one of their first round picks from last year over to the Wizards, which would be a horrible move for anyone else, but they've got all the draft picks in the world, so it doesn't matter. So good job, OKC. That's all I have to say, is this team is going to be around for like the next 5 or 6 years, so be ready, NBA. Orlando. Another kind of weird offseason for them. We knew that they needed scoring, they needed shooting. And so what did they go and do? Well, they went and got Desmond Bane, who can score the basketball and he can shoot. He's not quite the creator that they needed. And then they were like, okay, well, we can go find a creator. They got Tyus Jones, one of the better like kind of backup point guards, a creator for people, initiates offense. Cool. He's not really the scoring type, though, necessarily either. So kind of weird. Neither of these guys were exactly maybe what the team needed, but I guess we'll see. Like, it's a better roster than where it was at before. Who did they draft then? They drafted Jace Richardson and Noah Penda. Both of them are going to be on the full-time roster. I actually think Jace Richardson fits pretty well on this team as a kind of small combo guard that doesn't really want to dribble the basketball. Guys like Paulo and Franz and Suggs can have the ball and have a shooter working off them. But he can go guard the point guard. Cool. I think that makes a lot of sense. And Penda, I just think, is a fun prospect. So overall, it's not a bad offseason by any means. Just maybe a little bit confused by it. I feel like these weren't like nail on the head. Like, that's what you needed. But I'm excited to watch this team, if nothing else. I love the energy this team plays with. Moving on to the Philadelphia 76ers. Haven't done anything too crazy. The craziest thing they probably did, and crazy is relative, right, was they didn't end up drafting Ace Bailey. They went with VJ Edgecombe, who played in one summer league game, and everyone was like, EVC VJ Edgecombe's the GOAT! He's the GOAT! And I was like, whoa, like, yes, it was really cool. Like, you guys know, I've been on the VJ Edgecombe train since any of y'all were, because I was watching him like, y'all, this kid's a dog. Like, I was saying the whole season, this guy needs to be like a top 4 pick, and I think he's got some all-NBA potential. I'm really excited about him. I think Sixers fans should be excited about him too. Other additions, they drafted Janai Broom, who I think is a steal in this draft. You guys saw where I had him rated in a lot of my draft work. They brought back Eric Gordon, another vet shooter, brought back Kyle Lowry, another vet. They signed Trendon Watford, who's actually not a bad option for things, like, because he's a pretty solid defender and he's had history of being an okay 3-point shooter. They do have another open roster spot, which you just probably need another sizable forward on this team, because I think you're doing okay at center now. If this team's healthy, it's going to cause some, they're going to do some damage, so definitely be on the lookout for them. The Phoenix Suns. We talked about them in a video, about in the Bradley Beal video. This team had basically a 10-step plan that they needed to execute on this offseason, and they've basically done 2 through 9. And they didn't do 1, and they haven't done 10. Step 1 was save money and get below the cap. They're not doing that, so that's a little bit weird to me. The steps like 2 through 9 were find competitive players to put on the team. They've kind of been doing that in ways of like Dylan Brooks and the Kevin Durant trade. They added Jalen Green, who I don't think needs to be on the roster, but he's here anyway, so cool. They went and got a bunch of centers, which, great. You needed centers on this team. Point guard spot's looking a little bit questionable. There's a lot of guys that can have the basketball here. I know. But right now, Colin Gillespie's the one point guard on the team. You went and found some interesting fits in Nigel Hayes-Davis, who I actually have a small connection to, that it's just cool to see him back in the league. So, I don't know. It's a weird group. It feels like maybe it could be a bit of an in-between year. Maybe more moves are coming. I don't know. They drafted Maluach and Rasheer Fleming. Thought it was a really good draft. Moving on to the Portland Trailblazers, who I don't know if they've had much of an offseason, all said and done. They went and traded Anthony Simons for Drew Holiday, just straight up swap, which I think is nice in the sense of, like, Drew Holiday, if you put him out there for 50 for the first like half of this season and he just looks like normal Drew Holiday, you should get more for him back, and so it's a good investment, right? And then you have half a season of him being a nice leader for this team, teaching the young guys, yada, yada, yada. You moved Simons out of the way so guys like Scoot and Sharp could have more minutes. Great. That's cool. They also cut DeAndre Ayton in his last year, so fair enough. That frees up space for Donovan Clingan and Duop Reith, Yang Hansen, who they just drafted in a controversial draft pick in my mind, but he's here and we're going to see what he can do. So that's kind of it. That's kind of it for this team. They have a couple open roster spots still, which they could probably just use like one more point guard on the team, preferably someone that isn't going to demand a ton of minutes because you want Scoot out there as much as possible. Maybe another shooter as well would be nice on this team. Just looking at people, maybe you can steal a Caleb Houston from someone. That could be kind of cool. A Markelle Fultz would be kind of interesting. It's just a different type of point guard to have on the team, but otherwise, not really sure who else I'm looking at as far as like other guards on this team. Like maybe it just is like a DeLon Wright or a campaign or something. I don't know, but just let the young guys play this year. I don't think there's anything crazy to write home about. I'm just glad that guys like Clingan and Scoot can get a few more guaranteed minutes this season. Where's this team headed though? No clue, but we're gonna find out. The Sacramento Kings, yeah, this team's also in a really stupid spot, much like the Chicago Bulls. What are they building towards? I don't understand what they're building towards whatsoever. They went and traded for Dennis Schroeder. Like kind of a win now type of move. Dennis Schroeder's a good basketball player. They needed a point guard, so that makes sense. But like, what is this team going to be like the 13th seed in the West? Like, yes, all these players are good individually, like, but we know Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan doesn't really work. It's weird with Domantas Sabonis, who's an awesome player. Can Keegan Murray ever learn how to shoot again? I don't know. Is Malik Monk going to be on this roster going forward? I don't know. They traded Valanciunas, a guy that they like traded a couple picks to go get and then just turn that into Dario Saric. It's just really bad asset management. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like a third grader could do the math and tell you that this asset management is just really poor as well. They're not very good at collecting draft picks necessarily either. The other guy they brought in was Drew Eubanks. They need another center. That's cool. They drafted 2 good players in my mind for their draft picks, and Nick Clifford and Maxime Reynaud. Didn't really understand trading the future first round pick for this one, because you just don't really know what kind of team you're building towards. And I've seen some people being like, oh, Nick Clifford is just, I like Nick Clifford. It didn't make sense to me. So I don't know what the Kings are doing. It kind of pisses me off. Moving on to the Spurs. Spurs are doing everything right. Great for them. They just made a trade yesterday to add Kelly Olynyk onto the team for Blake Wesley, Malachi Branham, 2 guys that they just didn't need on this roster, and like a second round pick. So now you have another big on the roster. Great, that can space the floor. Cool. So now you got a little bit of solid big man depth on the team behind Victor. Great. That's awesome. You drafted Dylan Harper and Carter Bryant, 2 perfect draft picks for those spots. I thought it was awesome. Anybody else that I'm missing here? Anybody else that I'm missing? Excited to see a full season of De'Aaron Fox. We have 3 open roster spots. Probably could add one more guard to the team now. Doesn't have to be a ball dominant one, but probably could add another like point guard or something to this team. Maybe that is a Taylor Horton Tucker, a campaign, a DeLon Wright, Monte Morris, something like that. You got a little bit of cap space that you could throw at someone as well. I would try very hard to avoid the luxury tax this year, because you want to avoid that repeater tax for as long as possible. Otherwise, like, I don't know who else could really exist out there. Like a Brogdon, I guess, would be kind of cool. You could bring Chris Paul back if you really wanted to, but I don't think it's necessary. Markelle Fultz, again, kind of interesting. I wouldn't mind a Javonte Green on this team. So guys like that is what I'd look at. The Toronto Raptors. Not sure where this team's going either. They technically have -2 roster spots. That's really easy to clear up because guys like AJ Lawson don't necessarily need to be on the team. Colin Castleton, Jamison Battle, even though he was kind of interesting this year, it's just not needed. In terms of other players that they've brought in this year, they signed Mamu, and they brought back Garrett Temple, their end of the bench guy. Great, good for them, right? Drafted Colin Murray-Boyles in kind of a controversial draft pick when they could have had Kaman Maluach, which felt like a really obvious pick for this team, but instead they went with CMB. Cool. I just don't know where this team's going. I just don't. They're an expensive team that I don't know how good it's going to be, and I just don't understand what they're trying to be. Why does this keep happening, by the way? What is going on with... Where did this D come from on my spreadsheet? Where did this... At some point I started copying and pasting that, and that's just what happened. So weird. I will fix that later. But yeah, I don't know where they're going. They've got their draft picks, which is cool. I'm down to see this team play this year because we haven't seen Brandon Ingram with the group yet, but I don't know where it's going. And I don't think their bench is very good, so I just don't know. I don't know what this team is building towards. So kind of a weird offseason in that sense. The Utah Jazz. Yeah, you ended up with Ace Bailey, so everything kind of worked out. Ace Bailey's super talented. It's a lot of fun, right? I know people like to make fun of him on social media, but I just don't care. He's super talented, so you did well in the draft. You got him. You got Walter Clayton, who I think was a steal of a pick as well. You got John Tanji at like late in the draft. I think he's going to be a nice NBA player. You definitely have some people you need to move on from. Maybe Kevin Love's going to get cut or something. The Yusuf Nurkic trade for Colin Sexton was really weird. You've definitely depleted the draft picks a little bit more than I would have liked to have seen, but you're not in a bad spot. I'd like to see like some veteran guards on this team to help out the Colliers, Walter Claytons, and Keontae George. Out of all of them, Walter Clayton and George, I'm a little bit more interested in than Collier, but Ace Bailey's going to get his chance to shine on this roster, and that should be all that matters. Now you can kind of start to see if he's going to be that guy and figure out if you're building around him. Moving on to the last team, the Washington Wizards, who I think have done a pretty good job, all said and done. So shout out Washington. I know people make the joke that I hate the Washington Wizards. I don't hate them. It's my job to be objective, and they've been a really dumb franchise for forever. I'm doing the same thing with my Bulls. Bulls have been dumb for forever as well. And we can talk about that. But this team, no, they're doing good. They're doing good right now. They went in and brought some vets. They put a lot of young guys around those vets, and they're basically just taking flyers and being like, hey, who wants to try to play for this team? They have a bunch of draft picks going forward. cool. Like, I don't think they've got that guy yet. Trey Johnson should be fun. He's going to be able to get up a lot of shots. He's got great vets and Smart, McCollum, and Middleton on the team. Alex Sarr, let's continue to try to see if he can be a nice quality starting center in the NBA. I think he certainly can. They've got a couple a couple roster spots they got to trim down on, so we'll see what ends up happening with that. I know Rashawn Holmes isn't on a guaranteed deal. Maybe Corey Kispert's interesting to someone. Maybe Marcus Smart gets moved or something. I don't know, but a lot of young guys on this team that can go get an opportunity to be something here. So that should be exciting. Wizards fans, you guys are at least making moves that make sense to me right now. Oh, and by the way, I like the Will Riley pick too. I think Will Riley's interesting. But yeah, that's my quick update on all the teams in free agency right now. I'm going to try to get this video up in just a couple hours so that it's as up to date as possible. If something's happened since then, sorry, is what it is. I just have to jump into a meeting in like 5 minutes, so you boys gotta go do that or whatever. But as always, I appreciate you guys. Let's move on to the comment of the video. Alrighty, y'all, comment of the video is coming from our Ace Bailey Was Hooping film session. Go watch it. I think it should be a fun time. It comes from, where did it go? Christian here, who said, Chris Youngblood with the coolest name in Summer League, Anacalm 15. He might be the Summer League MVP already. I was like, hey, I can't disagree with that logic whatsoever. Cool ass name, and Chris Youngblood. Like, oh my gosh. Like, the name might not age well for you as you get older, but like for right now, sick ass name. But overall, seriously, I appreciate all the comments. You guys know I respond to every single one. I've got to go head to a meeting, so your boy's gonna dip. And yeah, appreciate you guys as always. We'll talk later. Thanks so much. Bye.